Hey guys, it's Matt here. Today we're doing a game glance. I'm joined with Andy,
Hello, guys.
and we are today playing a game. Well, I'm playing a game, and Andy's going to sort of ask me about it, and that is Toren. Now, if you want me to explain what this game exactly is about and the backstory, I kind of know, but I had to look it up because even playing it, I didn't really understand.
Okay. That's a,
What it's all about, which is really reassuring because hey, Matt's going to tell us about a game that he doesn't really understand and doesn't make much sense. But
brilliant.
I
Tell
feel
me
like
about
we
this
should...
game then, Matt. It sounds
Yeah,
awesome
okay.
already.
I'll do my very best to put it into sense. So let's just, as always, we go into the settings. So as with previous games that we've played, Andy,
Yep.
and done videos on, there's been very simple settings sometimes, especially with audio and stuff. So with the audio on this game, you literally do just get a master volume
All right.
setting.
So just
So,
the one slider then.
but in this game, it's not really, it's not really that big of a deal because you don't really have like the dialogue in the game is all text based. So really, the only volume is like the sound effects and like soundtrack and stuff in the background. So it's not really that big of an issue
Okay.
in this particular game. If we look at video settings, very sort of simplistic as well. So obviously you can change your resolution. I'm obviously not going to do that because it's going to mess up the
Yeah.
recording probably. You can change it from full screen to have that on or off. Quality, I have it. It's default set to good. I haven't really messed around with it. There's also things like motion blur effect and SSAO effect, which I don't know what that one is. Do you know
It's
what
like
that
a
is?
yeah, it's like a rendering technique, which
Okay.
which it's like ambient occlusion sort of effects.
So for all intents and purposes, this is like I've kept it all as the default layout when you first start the game up. So we're kind of playing it on the settings that the developers have sort of set up by default. Like that kind of says, what they think you should play the game as. Like obviously there's these optional things like motion blur and stuff, but best to keep them off.
Okay.
I'd say because
Yeah.
So
What about?
with the
I was gonna say, do you have any like controllers setups?
yeah, so this game is very simplistic controls, which obviously isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
So if we go into game settings, I want to point out, which is interesting about this game, as you pointed out to me before recording, there are other games that do say it's better to play with the gamepad. This is one of those games, but it doesn't really matter because there's only 3 buttons. So the one that says it says button 0, 2, and 3, that's because it's the controller.
Right.
So the eye symbol you can see there, that is for basically look at where you're focus on the objective that you're trying to get to, because there's not really any hand holding. There's no like objective things on screen. It's kind of like, oh, you need to get to here, figure it out on your own. And it kind of you can look at where you're trying to get to. Not X, well, it is X, but where the hand symbol is for pressing, when you press X, that's to interact with something. And I believe it's also for attacking, because there is some very basic like combat, but it's very minimalistic. Like there's not kind of any like upgrade your weapon and like insane attack moves. It's just sort of straightforward stuff, but it is an interesting game. So let's jump in to where I last was. So if I go to, actually, tell you what I'll do.
All right.
I'll go to a little bit before where I got to so far, because I don't want to sort of spoil anything. So on here you can, I don't know well, you should be able to just skip through the chapters in the released game, because obviously this was a press copy that was given to us by Versus Evil. So let's start right here.
Okay.
Probably around here. This is a good one. Basically, what people do need to sort of know that with the story, there isn't really one. It's very sort of, I don't know, wishy-washy.
Does it try and put across a story, or is it just like, I don't know, badly presented to you?
It's really random.
All right.
And it's confusing. The game is just in general really confusing, but you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
So this girl that you see here, she's a Moonchild. I don't know what that exactly means, Moonchild, but what we're trying to do here is obviously we're trying to get this sword because there's a dragon that is basically trying to turn us into stone. It's a little bit like Medusa,
right?
Because it tries to turn you into stone.
Oh god, like
also
that.
I also picked this part because it is the most where I was like, what the hell is going on? What am I doing? None of this makes any sense. But you'll see why.
So, hang on, have we just turned to stone there?
We have turned to stone, but you're going to be confused in a minute, because even though we just turned to stone there, and there we are, we've turned to stone, and trying to reach for that sword. But really confusingly, if it's going to cut to... We're suddenly a baby that's on the floor.
Okay.
And we have no context as to why. And the sword has fallen down. Somehow. Even though we didn't even touch it. But yeah. And now we're not a baby anymore. We're now... You see what I mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, that... And it doesn't have any text or anything to say...
Yeah. You're just sort of meant to... You just assume, like, yeah, I get that, because it's meant to symbolise... Basically, the story of the game is being like it's explained through subtle symbolism. There are some bits, I don't know if we'll get to it in this playthrough, but there are some sort of really even weirder sort of dream states where you sort of walk around in a sort of weird world and there's weird creatures, and you just sort of get to the end of that stage, really.
Okay.
And whilst when you're doing that, it's like, oh, the point of the dreams is to say, oh, well, this is so that you can have an understand of suffering, or like human suffering and stuff like that. So there's the old dragon, our friend over there. Well, it's not really our friend. Yeah. So to confuse us even more, can I just say,
Are you still there as stone?
We're still there as stone, and we actually climb on top of our stone self at one point. But yeah. And can I point out, this isn't actually... I don't believe this is one... Like, this part we're in isn't actually a dream state. Because they're... So you can tell when you're doing those, because you have to pull this grain of salt on the ground in, like, a symbol thing. Oh, crap. So, normally you'd think, oh, well, this dragon's going to turn us into stone. But this sword actually protects us from that.
Okay.
As you can see, like, whenever he does that, it deflects off.
So... So I assume we've got to go and fight this guy now, have we?
Yeah.
So how does the combat actually feel to fight him? Oh god, you've lost your...
Yeah. So I'm trying to... I can't actually use myself for some reason right now. I'm pressing the attack button. But it's very sort of, like I said at the beginning, very minimalistic. So you can do like a few standard swipes and stuff. Like left, right slashes and down, but you can't really control which one of those you do. And when you're fighting the dragon, we sort of have a bit of a battle with him here. You keep, every time you hit him, you actually lose your sword, which some people might find quite annoying.
So like when you've lost your sword, like, can you actually get turned to stone then? Because if the sword's not there to protect you, then surely you just turn into...
Yeah, and then you have to go right back to the beginning. And
okay.
I think on some occasions my stone self has been left there, and then I've come back and I'm like, oh, hello. I just...
Are you...
Did you live recorded, I just bugged the game. I just went inside the dragon. I did not die there, can I just say. I hit him and I merged with him. For the first time on a game glance, we have a massive bug, which isn't...
So is this another load? That's a load screen, isn't it? I thought it was going further in the story for a second.
So we've just literally come back to the beginning here.
Okay.
Even though we shouldn't have, because that was literally just a bug. Never happened before. Yeah. So actually, while I'm climbing up these stairs, when I said about why, you can look over here, so you can focus on where you need to get to by doing that. The camera angles, as you've probably noticed by now, are in a sort of... You don't control it. It's very sort of cinematic, and it controls itself. You can move things like this. you can kind of
You got a bit
look
of
around you, but you can't like go. I can't go. Oh, I want to look at the front of her or something. If I want to, I have to sort of just go with it.
Okay. I mean, is that, are the camera angles that it gives you, do they impede the gameplay at all, or are you finding that okay?
I'd actually say that there's only one, which is more of the movement, but there's only one instance where the camera's really annoying, and it's in one of those dream states.
Okay.
Because the camera points like really low down, and you can't really very easily control. You'd have to like jump from one platform to another.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. But overall, I kind of like this, zooming out in and stuff, because it kind of gives that sort of cinematic feel, like you're watching a movie, but kind of interacting with it as well. And oh God, I thought I glitched it again there. So let's hopefully not let what happened last time happen again. I do want to point out he is actually levitating. I know he was.
I mean, he's a dragon, so I guess he can.
Yeah.
He's allowed to fly.
Did you just see that movement?
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. So we can actually hide behind here, and this will also protect us.
Oh right.
So you X to interact, like I said, on the controls bit, and you can move them as well. So if I wanted to, like, I want to get over there, but I don't think I've got enough time, I can sort of go, where is my sword? And it's over there, and I can move them to get really close to it.
Okay, I quite like that actually. That's quite an interesting.
And you do have similar battles like this, and I think the whole thing with the sword flying back is that it's meant to show that you're just this girl who's going against a massive dragon. You're not going to be OP. So you can hit a few times, but he gets back up, and then
it does just seem weird. Like I don't know if it's just how I'm viewing it, but the sword doesn't seem to just fly away. It just disappears from your hand.
Yeah, I think it's meant to. It might just be a bug, but because
Okay.
I actually want to see holding. I don't know if you have to be just holding it. You do, okay? Because originally when I was playing, obviously I played a bit of the game beforehand of this recording.
Yeah.
I thought you had to be behind it, but you literally can just hold on to it at any point.
I wonder if that's because like it looks like the statue's got the sword on the top of it. So I wonder if that's like a protector statue. Maybe that's meant to be the lore behind it.
The one thing is though, is I can't actually see if I'm gripping it here because of the camera angle business.
Yeah.
So I just got turned to stone, even though I was holding onto it from that side, which is a little bit weird. So 3 sides of that statue were protected, and that back one wasn't for some reason. So it's a little bit.
Okay, so obviously, like the camera angles that you were talking about earlier, that's one of the downsides.
It's sort of
where they
are.
are.
It's like a love-hate relationship basically with it.
So I know you're saying that the combat is like a minor part of it. So are there many other? You not got this sword there, bud?
Oh no! It's all the way up at the top.
Oh, it's still up there.
It flew out of our hand. If you amazingly, we shouldn't have actually spawned with the sword, because the only way that you can die is by losing the sword. So when that bug happened and we still had the sword and we merged in the dragon, that wasn't actually meant to happen, I don't think.
Okay.
So it's kind of because of the fact that we kind of temporarily broke the game a little bit.
So, like, obviously we're fighting the dragon now, or we're just going back to fight the dragon. So how many sort of different, like, almost, I see it as an almost boss type thing? Like, how many different parts of the game are like this? And
most of the combat is like the boss things. It's with this dragon from what I've played.
So when we're not fighting sort of bosses and dragons and stuff, what's the sort of rest of the game like?
So obviously, I mentioned about the dream states of where you go through and you have to, and they're some of them are quite interesting. Like you have to sort of understand that in order to sort of gain something, you have to make sacrifices. So you actually have to perform a sacrifice, like an animal. And there's other things like that that kind of getting her to understand her emotions and stuff. And like the backstory is basically that this girl Moonchild, she's basically trying to understand a purpose of her existence, which sounds like a really like sort of teen, like, oh, I just want to understand what's the point of living, what's purpose, But yeah, that is literally the backstory, is that you're trying to understand the purpose of your existence. But so you do come across this dragon numerous times. I've come across him twice, and each time it introduces a different mechanic. What's good about the game is the way that it introduces that. So in some of those dream states, it will actually say, oh, hey, you've got to avoid the wind, because it will blow you off the edge of the ledge that you're on. And you so you learn that, and then it's like, okay, now that you know how to do that, we'll put that to the test against the dragon. And then you have other statues like that. Oh, I don't know where the sword is. Oh, it's over there. It introduces different mechanics. Oh,
that's close.
It's really... I can see why it's kind of difficult to sort of talk about the game and play it sometimes. I can feel your pain sometimes when we've done these previous videos.
It's not exactly the easiest. Oh god, my camera just spazzed there. So like the other mechanics that you're talking about, like when it introduces them, does it combine them, or like for example this one where it's just you've got to avoid his stone casting power, like does it only use one of the mechanics at a time, or does it sort of build up and then you have your sort of arsenal of mechanics to use in the game? Oh no,
that was so unfair because I'm literally gripping it there. Sorry, yeah, you were saying about the mechanics.
So when
if it combines them, you're saying. Not from what I've seen. It's very sort of like, okay, here's one mechanic. It might further down the game. I do want to point out that the game is only, from what I've seen of people leaving Steam reviews, they've been saying that takes about 3 to 5 hours to complete the game. Like I think it's probably about 3 to 4 actually, because most people were saying that they completed it in like 3 hours. So it is a very short game. But it's not like a full price game like the Order 1886, which is, a similar sort of playtime, but is a full priced £40 game. It's not as expensive as that, so it might not be an issue.
Okay. So how far, like, roughly are we in this at the moment?
So from this point, this chapter, it probably takes it took me about 50 minutes to get to this point. So
it's about a quarter of the way through then. Like if we go
roughly about a quarter. But the beginning is even more random than these parts that you have seen. I just want to get past this dragon so that we can actually... Oh, stupid dragon. So we can actually, look at some of the other stuff. Because I really want to show off the dream states, because they're quite good. Let's just quickly jump. Hurry up, go. Oh, I forgot. No.
We're stone again. Oh no!
I completely forgot. You can't grab that one. I didn't have enough time. See, when I did this battle the first time, it did take me quite a few tries, and I was sort of getting really annoyed at it because I didn't really understand. But yeah, there's not really any hand holding. It's just kind of like, okay, well, this is a sword, and figure out. You just gradually piece things together. But we haven't been too successful so far because we've just been playing through the same section. If we get stuck on it too much, I might just skip to another chapter. Probably.
Okay. So, like, for the whole of the game, so far is it just the one character that you're playing, like this Moon Girl? I take it.
Yeah. She sounds like a superhero.
Moon Girl
to the rescue. You literally just play as her throughout the entire game. Although you do play as her in different forms, so you play as her when she's a bit younger.
Okay, because I noticed like when we first saw her, she was sort of covered in blood, and now like when she's been reborn.
Yeah, it's this really weird thing. So every time you sort of, I don't like this. Why did I choose this chapter? I don't. One thing that's weird with every time you beat the dragon, and it kind of flies away each time.
Okay. Sorry, that just sounded like a weird sort of innuendo when you beat the dragon.
Oh, I know. I realised that when I said it, but It's I can't get it out of my head now. It's like you wake up in like a pool of red blood, and your like clothes are covered in blood as well. It's really weird. Like you wake up on the ground,
Okay.
like every time. But I should be okay. I should. If not, oh, I wasn't gripping it then. Innuendos, man. Oh, I wasn't gripping it. So you can't just stand behind it like this. You don't have to.
I would have laughed if you had turned to stone there.
Oh, I know.
So where is your sword still
go.
behind you? Is it? Oh, it's there. Right.
There.
Yeah.
Once I get this, you're done, mate. You are done.
So
Yeah, I'm invincible.
So is it like a cumulative
Sorry,
damage?
The thing is, I don't actually know how much damage we don't really ever know how much damage you're doing, but it tends to be in this particular section, just like, well, apparently he just needed one more hit there. But it's like 3 hits and then the sword flies back and then rinse and repeat sort of.
Okay. Yeah, so it's obviously like the fact that you died a couple of times there, it didn't really matter, and like it's cumulative damage.
Can I just point out I have no idea who this guy is?
Right.
This isn't because I haven't done my research. I don't think it does a very good job of explaining everything, like with the story. Because it is very sort of incredibly subtle storytelling to the point where I had to look up the story, even though I'd played like an hour of the game. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. Oh, okay.
Okay.
But fortunately enough, this is actually one of the dream states. So we're having to understand human suffering and about like having to make sacrifices. So this is the salt stuff that I was saying. Like you like pour it in. You have to fill up the symbol.
Oh right, yeah.
Once you've done that, then you get a bit of dialogue, which is all text-based. So as dark clouds gathered as the Solidor awoke and, drawn by the moon, began to climb the tower, silence fell across the land. He paused once when he saw you, but there was no stopping now. So I don't really know what it's referring to and stuff, but it could just be that I am stupid and I don't really understand the sort of storytelling mechanics. And
so now this is we're fully inside the dream, which is why everything looks completely screwed.
Yeah, the really this other thing saying that a weapon becomes stronger by the sacrifice of innocent life, and we're actually going to sacrifice that poor little deer over there.
Oh my god!
But it seems to be that every time you come into an encounter with the dragon, every time that you defeat it in that particular stage, you go into one of these dreams, and then you wake up exactly where you left off. So with this guy, we're going to have to lead him over there to where that pool of blood was with the sword. So we're kind of leading him to his own demise, really, which is a little bit sad.
It's very morbid, isn't it?
I got to say though, I did try to lead him into this pit of fire just to see if it would work.
Yeah.
But but I don't think it. Let's just see.
He's too smart for that fire, man.
He's just glitching. He was, yeah, he is. But he's not smart enough because he's just like, oh look. But yeah, it's a very overall, it's a very different type of game, very interesting. Like I don't think I've played a game like this. I don't think I am a fan of the subtle storytelling, but that's just could be a personal preference. And I kind of wish there was more to the combat, really, because it can get a bit repetitive during the battles. So I'm just going to lead him over here.
I mean, I feel like from what you're saying as well, the fact that the story isn't the greatest. No, I wouldn't say the story isn't the greatest, but the storytelling maybe could be presented a bit better.
Yeah, it's very sort of what's the word? Very sort of like it's like the Riddler made the game, like as the spirits clashed, the Solidor and the dragon understood one another, and you're like, what's going on here? But yeah, this bit I kind of was a bit straightforward because it's like, okay, well, sometimes you have to make sacrifices to become stronger, and I kind of get that. But some of these dreams are really bizarre, and they don't really because there's a lack of context. That's probably my biggest gripe with the game is the lack of context.
Does that lack of context sort of ruin your experience of the game any, or is it?
I think it just makes me. I think it makes me underappreciate the story. Really, that's just kind of because I don't understand what's going on.
But has at any point, like, because you couldn't understand what's going on, has that made you want to stop playing it all?
Not really, because I still have enjoyed it, and
Okay.
I still because I'm just sort of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder, like when I got the sword, I was like, oh, cool, because you don't start off with the sword. As we saw at the very beginning of that game, we had to go and get it.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just quite interesting. Like some of the battles, the mechanics. Like this is the one I said about it's introducing you to the wind.
Yeah.
And so if I actually noticed a little trick with this. I don't know if it's meant to be. So you fly off there and you just go on to the end.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll show you the next time. I don't know if this is an actual thing that is meant to be to work, but if you keep tapping the X button and drawing your sword out, you actually don't fly to the back.
Okay.
See, like that, you see? Yeah. And I don't think that's meant to be a thing. Also, the jumping physics are really quite odd. You could say that's because it's in the dream, but the jumping like this is the same as when you're just regularly playing through the game, like with where that dragon was.
Mm.
So it's a little bit like from the, it's like Apollo 13 or something. Like,
So it's like everyone's on the moon.
Yeah, basically.
Apart from Apollo 13 didn't ever get to the moon, but, lore.
Yeah, well, that's true. But we're not on the moon, so we're just practicing for...
Just practice. This is how the astronauts practice. They went into dreams and...
Yeah. But I really don't think this is meant to be a legitimate defense against it.
Mm.
But yeah.
But there isn't anywhere really to protect you, like in between all the wind blasts. So I'm guessing, like if you're playing it properly, you have to duck in between cover.
Probably. Like when you play against the dragon. It's a good job I didn't say beat the dragon again. But when you face up against him next time, the wind's sort of blowing in your direction. You have to stand behind the pillars, although I think the sword technique still works, funnily enough.
Okay, so how much did you say this game was at the moment?
So the game is it's only £6.99 in pounds, or regional equivalent. It's available on PC only, I believe, and it's available on Steam. It came out on the 12th of May, so it's a fairly new game that's just come out, and it is, like we said earlier, about 3 to 5 hour experience. So whether you think it depends how important game length is to you. I feel like for $6.99, I probably would recommend at least looking at it. There are some things that are annoying, and like this this weird jumping physics and stuff, and the story's really odd and kind of hard to kind of understand. But overall, it's quite an interesting game, and for $6.99, it's something that's it's not your Call of Duty with your pew pew. It's not it's not another Assassin's Creed game sequel. It's different, and it's kind of worth looking at, even though it is quite short. I do want to say, here we are climbing on top of ourselves.
Yeah. We've just broken our own head off. Oh my god.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I think we should probably wrap the video up here.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, £6.99 in pounds. About 3 to 5 hours story. You can get it on PC. You can play it with a gamepad or a keyboard, and I would recommend it, Andy. I think it is worth at least looking at.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks very much, Matt.
That's alright. So that's all for this video. We will see you in the next Game Glance. Until then, goodbye from me and Andy.
Good boo.